The slingshot. What is it? Why do we use it? There we go. The slingshot. What is it? Why do we use it? How can it be helped to improve strength in the push-up and the bench press, help reduce pain, but also improve performance, break through plateaus on our bench press, develop a really good push-up form, and otherwise take us to new heights in our horizontal strength. So if you go back to episode 1585 of the PTNS Daily Show, we talked about a bunch of different ways to modify the bench press around pain. We talked about floor press, we talked about hanging bands from the pull-up bar, we talked about pin pressing, a bunch of different ways to modify the bench press. We talked a little bit about the slingshot, but we're going to go into deep detail today on the Daily Show. So what is the slingshot? This is essentially a giant band that you wrap around your arms. We'll show you a demo here in a second. But this was developed by Mark Bell. He's an American powerlifter. I think we should listen to somebody like Mark Bell, who has a 2,600-pound total combined lift between bench press, deadlift, and back squat. And he created this to help him train his bench press around shoulder pain, of knowing stopping bench pressing was not going to help his bench press get any stronger. If only anything, it was going to get it weaker. And so he wanted to be able to train bench press through periods of pain, but also see, is there a way that we can overload the bench press and train bench press more often to become somebody like Mark Bell, who has almost a 900-pound bench press. And so the idea behind this is really not any different than a banded pull-up. We're going to create tension across the chest. It's going to offload the muscles of the shoulder and the elbow and reduce the work that those muscles have to produce to do things like a bench press or a push-up. In addition, when we're under fatigue, maybe because we've already bench pressed earlier in the session or maybe earlier in the week, can we continue to train bench press more often if we use something like the slingshot? And Mark Bell would say yes. Sometimes the slingshot can provide so much tension that it can let individuals lift up to 25% above their 1 rep max. So continuing to lift heavy, lift at higher volumes because of the band tension of the slingshot. So why do we do this? It's really no different once you understand this and once you see this, that it's no different than a banded pull-up. It's going to provide tension at the hardest point of the movement, which in a bench press or a push-up is that bottom position where we need to either push up against gravity or push the barbell weight off of our chest. Putting it on and off is quite easy. It goes up and around the arms. If you've never used one of these, they're quite fun to play with, especially if you already are pretty okay at push-ups and bench press. If you use one of these, it really makes stuff like push-ups feel very fun, and you understand how something like this could help you accumulate a lot of volume on top of what you're already doing. So it kind of mimics a bench shirt in equipped powerlifting. We're going to get a lot of tension across the chest as we come into the bottom position of that push-up or that bench press. And so if we go into the bottom of a push-up here, for example, as I get near the bottom, I'm going to get a ton of tension off the floor, and it's going to make my push-ups feel very, very, very easy. We can also appreciate that it's going to force, well, we won't say perfect technique, but for somebody who maybe benches really wide with an internally rotated shoulder, or maybe very narrow with a tricep dominant bench, this slingshot is going to put you in a really good arm slot angle to maximize the contribution from the pec, the deltoid, in the tricep. You can certainly overpower this band and continue with suboptimal technique, but the band is basically trying to continually reinforce more optimal technique, if only for the purposes of performance. So that's the slingshot. We're going to talk in a second about how to dose this, but again, hopefully you can fundamentally appreciate that it begins to resemble a banded pull-up, where we get a lot of tension to the bottom, where folks tend to be the weakest in something like a push-up or a bench press. Before we get into dosing, I'm going to take a break, introduce myself. My name is Alan. I'm happy to have you here today. This is Fitness Athlete Friday, brought to you by the PT on Ice Daily Show. On Fitness Athlete Friday, we talk all things CrossFit, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, bodybuilding, endurance athletics. If you or your patients or athletes are active individuals, the topics on Fitness Athlete Friday are for you. Coming up in the Fitness Athlete division, our Level 1 online course starts January 14th. Our Level 2 online course starts January 20th. And we have live courses coming to you across the country in 2025. So check out ptonice.com for those locations and dates. We do have a price increase coming in just a couple of days. On January 1st, all courses currently priced at $695 will jump up to $750. So if you see a course you like right now, you can purchase that for the 2024 rate of $695. And brand new this year, if you don't see a course you like or that currently works for you, but you're hoping to see something come to your area soon or jump into an online course later in the year, you can buy a course credit at the $695 rate and get a coupon code to use in 2025 on any $750 course and lock in that $695 rate. Okay, let's finish and talk about dosing this. How would we use something like the Slingshot if we have maybe a patient or athlete who wants to get their first RX push-up or wants to develop a stronger bench press? We want to use as little tension as necessary, right? We don't want to just go for as much tension as possible and not get what we might call a strength dose. How can we be sure someone is working at an appropriate range to develop something like a stronger bench press or to develop what we might call a strict push-up? We want to stay in the 15 to 30 rep range, and we want that RPE to be high, maybe a 7 to 9 out of 10. So that might look like 5 sets of 3, 5 sets of 5, 7 sets of 3, 8 sets of 4, something like that. We want it to feel very, very challenging, even with the assistance from the Slingshot. So we have to be careful we don't give somebody too much assistance that they're able to do something like 5 sets of 10, right? That's going to more develop endurance than it is really going to develop strength. So great for endurance, great for hypertrophy, maybe great for rehab to get some pain killing on board. But if we want to be really judicious that we're building strength, we need to keep the reps lower and the intensity of the strength higher, which means we need to back off the band tension. What's nice about the Slingshot is that it comes in 5 different levels of tension. So this is the original Slingshot, which is the level 3, so right in the middle. We have the push-up Slingshot, which is level 1, and then we have the Mad Dog Slingshot, which is level 5. The level 5 Slingshot promises that with the Slingshot on, you'll be able to bench 25% more than your current 1 rep max. So again, back to the idea of overloading the bench press. With a lot of band tension, you can lift maybe hundreds more pounds than you could without the Slingshot, which is going to help overload that movement pattern. So make sure that we're using just enough tension to challenge that person if they want to go on to develop their push-up. If we give them too much tension, just like a pull-up, where they're knocking out dozens and dozens and dozens of reps, they're probably not going to significantly make any headway towards developing that first push-up or that first strict pull-up unassisted. Now, the opposite is true in something like CrossFit, where we do see push-ups and light bench press show up in conditioning, where maybe we are now trying to get through 50 or 75 or 100 or 150 reps of push-ups or bench press. That is the case for more band tension. How much? Again, it's going to depend on what is the stimulus. Now, we're not intentionally going for a strength stimulus. We're going for a conditioning stimulus. So something like the Slingshot can be helpful for push-ups. Obviously, scaling the load in a CrossFit workout is going to be the best way for a bench press. But if we're using the Slingshot or we're using a band across the rig or something like that, we want to use enough tension to match the intended stimulus. How do we know what that is? That's the coach's job, right? Hey, this workout is 5 rounds for time of 100 double unders and 25 push-ups. I want the push-ups to be completed in 3 sets or less. Okay, that probably looks like something like 10, 8, 7 push-ups. What band tension will let you do a set of 10, a set of 8, and then a set of 7 under fatigue? And that's really how we can dial in the tension dose and make sure that we don't give somebody not enough so that it turns accidentally into a strength workout instead of a conditioning workout, or we don't give somebody too much tension. Again, a lot like too much for strength, we don't give somebody so much tension that they can do all 25 reps unbroken and they don't really feel challenged by the conditioning aspects of the push-up in the middle of the CrossFit workout. So that's something to consider. The final thing I'll say about dosing is make sure that you're always progressing your patient or athlete. No different than banded pull-ups. If we're not careful, we can create the green band lady or the red band guy, right? Where when they see pull-ups or push-ups or whatever, they come in, they grab that color of band, and they use that band no matter what. Continually challenge and push them. What I like to do is folks work their way down in band tension. Maybe they're using the lightest tension possible. I will say something like, do as many push-ups as you can without the band tension. Once you hit muscular failure, pick up the slingshot, pick up the band, whatever, finish out the reps in that conditioning piece with the tension to get more volume in. Not unlike the idea behind the slingshot to begin with, to overload the bench press for maximum powerlifting performance. Make sure those folks don't get hooked on what we would call the band candy. Again, no different than the pull-up. We don't want folks to be stuck on a band forever. We need to progress them away. Once somebody is on the lightest band possible, that is a great time to start to dose in things like eccentrics. Maybe they're not yet ready for a set of 5 or 10 unassisted push-ups. Maybe they can only do 1 or 2, but they can probably get into the push-up start position and control their lowering down, a lot like we transition people to pull-up eccentrics on the way to doing unassisted pull-ups. So just make sure you're continually progressing someone. Don't let them get hooked on the band. This has a time and place, but we shouldn't always be using the band. We shouldn't always be using the band a lot like pull-ups. So the slingshot, what is it? Created by American powerlifter Mark Bell, train around pain, reinforce optimal technique, help overload the bench press to break through plateaus on 1 rep maxes. How does it work? It provides tension across the chest in the bottom position of the push-up or the bench press. It can allow us to lift beyond our 1 rep max to overload our training. It can also help us on our way to developing our first push-up. Dosing it, strength, keep the reps low, keep the challenge high, use as little tension as necessary to achieve 15 to 30 reps at a 7 to 8 out of 10 RPE. And then in conditioning, make sure the band tension matches the intended stimulus of the workout. That we don't give someone too little tension that they struggle to finish the reps, but we also don't give them too much tension that they're not challenged by the rep scheme because of the tension that they have. And then finally, and most importantly, make sure that we're always progressing that tension. We're making sure that folks do not get hooked on the band. We want them to progress to unassisted push-ups. We want them to bench press without the band most of the time and not be dependent on the slingshot, not unlike not getting hooked on a band for their pull-ups. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday. Have a great weekend. Have a great New Year. Bye, everybody.